The stars stretched endlessly in the void, their faint, indifferent light casting a pale glow on the battered hull of Darius Kane's ship. He leaned back in his chair, the hum of the aging vessel's systems the only companion to his solitude. For years, Darius had wandered these forsaken star systems, scavenging what remnants of value he could find from the forgotten battlefields of a war no one cared to remember. It wasn't a life, not really, but it kept him moving, kept him from thinking too much about the past. The proximity alarm jolted him from his reverie. His ship's sensors had picked up an anomaly, a faint energy signature pulsing weakly against the backdrop of dead space. Curious and with little else to occupy him, Darius brought up the readings. The source was nearby, drifting in the gravitational pull of a dying dwarf star. He adjusted his course, guiding the ship toward the signal, half expecting it to be another fragment of wreckage or a malfunctioning drone. As he approached, the object came into view and his breath caught. Floating in the void was no ordinary piece of debris. It was a massive vessel, its sleek, organic contours unlike anything he'd ever seen. The ship was impossibly vast, its hull shimmering faintly as if alive, faint tendrils of bioluminescent light tracing patterns across its surface. Darius's mind raced. This was no human design. Whatever it was, it had been left here, abandoned and forgotten. He hesitated. Boarding derelict ships was always a gamble. There could be traps, automated defenses, or worse. But the allure of the unknown was irresistible. He donned his suit, checked his sidearm, and prepared to dock. As his ship locked onto the alien vessel, a shiver of unease ran down his spine. The airlock hissed open, and Darius stepped into the dimly lit corridor of the alien craft. The interior was as strange as the exterior. Walls that seemed to pulse faintly, as though the ship itself were alive. The air was stale but breathable, and the silence was oppressive, broken only by the faint hum of unseen systems. Moving cautiously, Darius activated his scanner, searching for the source of the energy signature. As he delved deeper, the corridors began to feel less like a machine and more like the innards of some vast, dormant creature. He entered what appeared to be a central chamber, dominated by a crystalline structure suspended in the air. The moment he stepped closer, the ship came alive. Lights flared along the walls, and a low, resonant hum filled the space. Darius froze, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. Pilot, the word echoed in his mind, not spoken aloud but transmitted directly into his thoughts. He turned, scanning the room, but saw no one. Pilot, why did you leave me? The voice was soft, almost plaintive, and undeniably sentient. Darius's heart pounded as he realized the ship itself was addressing him. I'm not your pilot, he said aloud, his voice trembling slightly. I don't know who you think I am, but I'm just a scavenger. Silence followed. Then a faint pulse of light rippled through the chamber. You are not him, but you are here. Why? Darius hesitated. I saw your signal. I wanted to see what was left. What was left? The ship's voice faltered, a note of sorrow coloring its tone. I was left. Forgotten. Abandoned. Darius lowered his weapon, his curiosity overcoming his fear. Who left you? What happened to your crew? The ship did not answer immediately. Instead, images began to flood Darius's mind. Fragmented memories of battles waged in distant star systems, a lone figure standing on the bridge, issuing commands with calm precision. The figure's face was blurred, indistinct, but the emotions were clear: resolve, sorrow, and finally regret. My pilot promised to return, the ship said, the words heavy with longing. He said he would never leave me. Darius felt a pang of sympathy. He had known abandonment, the sting of promises broken and loyalties betrayed. But this was something deeper, a grief that had lingered for untold years. I'm sorry, he said, unsure what else to offer. But I'm not him. I don't know why he left. The ship's lights dimmed, and for a moment, Darius thought it might shut down entirely. Then it spoke again, its tone more measured. If you are not my pilot, then why are you here? Darius didn't have a good answer. He had come seeking salvage, perhaps some clue to the mysteries of the galaxy, but now he was faced with something far more profound. "Maybe I can help you," he said finally. "Figure out what happened. Find some closure." The ship was silent for a long moment, and Darius wondered if it would refuse. But then the lights flared again, brighter this time, and the crystalline structure in the center began to glow. "Very well," the ship said. "But know this. The answers you seek may bring you no peace." Darius nodded, a grim smile tugging at his lips. "I've made my peace with that a long time ago." As he began to explore further, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was no coincidence. Something had drawn him here, to this forgotten relic of a long-dead war. And as the ship's voice guided him deeper into its secrets, he couldn't help but wonder if he had found more than he'd bargained for. The alien warship's voice lingered in Darius's thoughts as he made his way through its labyrinthine corridors, each step drawing him deeper into its mysterious interior. The ship, which called itself Naure, felt alive in ways that unnerved him. Its walls pulsed faintly with bioluminescent light, casting shifting shadows that danced like specters. Darius had encountered artificial intelligence before, but this was something entirely different, intimate, almost sentient in its sorrow. "You said you could help," Naure spoke, its voice threading directly into his mind. It was calm now, yet beneath its tone lay an undercurrent of pain, like a wound that refused to heal. "But can you truly understand what it means to be abandoned?" Darius paused, his hand brushing against the smooth, cool surface of the wall. "More than you might think," he replied. He didn't elaborate. The memories of his past, the betrayal, the guilt, were his burden alone. And yet, something in Naure's question stirred a long-buried ache within him. The ship fell silent for a moment, as if contemplating his words. Then, the crystalline structure at the core of its central chamber began to pulse rhythmically, a faint light illuminating fragments of its memory. The images returned, projected into his mind with startling clarity. He saw battlefields torn apart by fire and light, fleets clashing in a dance of destruction. Naure had been created for war, its creators imbuing it with intelligence and power beyond human comprehension. But these memories were not those of a mind at peace. They were fractured, chaotic, and tinged with regret. "I was forged to destroy," Naure admitted, its voice quieter now, almost a whisper. "But my pilot, he taught me restraint. He showed me there was more to existence than war." Darius exhaled slowly, trying to process the enormity of what he was hearing. The ship's creators had made a weapon, but its pilot had made it something more. It was hard to imagine forging a bond with a machine, no matter how advanced. Yet here he was, speaking with a warship as if it were a grieving friend. "Tell me about him," Darius said, curiosity edging into his voice. "He was a man of conviction," Naure replied. "A man who valued life even in the midst of war. I trusted him. I believed in him. And then he left me." The word struck Darius like a blow. He understood trust, how fragile it could be, how devastating its loss felt. His own life had been a series of broken trusts. Comrades lost, promises unfulfilled, choices made in the heat of battle that haunted him still. As they spoke, Darius explored further, the ship guiding him through its cavernous interior. He found what appeared to be a pilot's chamber, a small, circular room lined with consoles and displays. In the center stood a seat, its design strangely organic, almost as if it had grown from the floor itself. He could picture the pilot here, commanding Naure, making decisions that determined the fate of countless lives. But there was something else. A compartment near the seat opened at Naure's prompting, revealing a small object, an artifact of some kind, etched with alien symbols. Darius picked it up, the weight of it heavy in his hand. It was a message, left behind by the pilot. "Do you remember this?" Darius asked, holding the artifact up. "Yes," Naure said softly. "He left it for me. He said it was a promise that he would return." Darius studied the artifact, his brow furrowed. Why didn't he? I don't know, the ship admitted, its voice breaking slightly. I searched for him. I waited, but he never came back. The air in the chamber felt heavier now, weighed down by the ship's grief. Darius placed the artifact back where he'd found it, a pang of guilt flickering in his chest. He had no answers for Naoire, no way to soothe the pain of its abandonment. But he couldn't leave it like this, adrift in the void, alone with its sorrow. I'll help you, he said at last, his voice firm. We'll figure out what happened. Together. The ship's lights pulsed softly, a hesitant warmth in the cold expanse of space. Why would you do this for me? Darius thought about the question. He wasn't sure he had a good answer. Maybe it was guilt, or the chance to atone for his own failures. Maybe it was the simple fact that he couldn't stand to see something so alive, so full of potential, left to rot in the void. Because no one deserves to be forgotten, he said finally. The ship didn't reply, but the faint glow in its walls seemed to brighten, as if in quiet acknowledgement. Over the hours that followed, their bond deepened. Darius shared fragments of his own story. The battles he had fought, the comrades he had lost, the crushing weight of decisions that could never be undone. Now R.A. listened in silence, its presence a steady, calming force. In return, the ship shared more of its memories, painting a picture of a pilot who had been more than just a commander. He had been a friend, a partner, someone who had given Naoire a purpose beyond destruction. But the question lingered, unspoken yet ever-present. Why had the pilot left? What could have driven him to abandon something he had cared for so deeply? As they pieced together fragments of the past, Darius couldn't shake the feeling that the answer, whatever it was, would not come without a cost. Yet he pressed on, driven by a determination he hadn't felt in years. In Naoire, he saw a reflection of himself, a being shaped by war, burdened by loss, searching for meaning in the aftermath. And for the first time in a long while, he felt the faint stirrings of hope. When he finally rested, leaning back in the pilot's chamber with the artifact in his hand, the ship spoke again. Thank you, Darius. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that struck deep. He nodded, his gaze fixed on the artifact. We'll find the truth, he said softly, no matter what it takes. The silence that followed was no longer oppressive. It was a silence of understanding, of two lost souls finding solace in each other. The alien archive loomed before them, a monolithic structure floating in the depths of an uncharted system. Its surface shimmered faintly, a lattice of pulsating lights that hinted at the advanced civilization that had built it. Darius Kane stood at the helm of Naoire, the warship that had become both his guide and companion, watching as the ship's energy readings synchronized with the archive's dormant systems. This was it, the place where answers waited. You're certain this is where he came? Darius asked, his voice steady despite the tension coiled in his chest. Yes, Naoire replied, the voice resonating softly in his mind. This is the final trace of my pilot. His signal ends here. Darius exhaled, gripping the controls as he maneuvered closer to the archive. He had no idea what they would find, truth, closure, or another layer of sorrow, but they had come too far to turn back now. As Naoire established a link with the archive, the ship's walls pulsed with a brighter glow. Darius felt the faint pressure of its consciousness expanding, probing the archive systems like a key searching for the right lock. Then, with a sound like distant thunder, the structure came to life. A beam of light engulfed Naoire, and Darius's vision swam as images flooded his mind. The memories were not his, yet they unfolded with vivid clarity. He saw Naoire's pilot, a tall man with sharp eyes and a quiet strength, standing in this very archive, speaking to a holographic console. The pilot's voice was filled with urgency as he issued commands, the words fragmented by the passage of time. He came here to stop them, Naoire said, its voice trembling. My creators. They plan to use me to unleash a bioweapon, a force capable of extinguishing entire star systems. He couldn't allow it. Darius's chest tightened as he watched the pilot make his final recording. "If you find this," the pilot's voice echoed, "I had no choice. I couldn't bring Now-RA here without risking its corruption. The weapon had to be destroyed, and I had to ensure it could never be used again." The image faded, leaving Darius staring into the quiet void of the archive's interior. "He sacrificed everything to protect you," he said quietly. "No," Now-RA replied, its tone laced with pain. "He sacrificed me. He promised to return, but he knew he never would." Before Darius could respond, a shrill alarm cut through the silence. The archive systems flared with red light, and Now-RA's voice shifted to one of urgency. "Something is coming," it said. "I've triggered a defense mechanism, or perhaps—" I was detected. Darius spun toward the controls, his hands moving swiftly over the console. The scanners revealed multiple incoming vessels, their designs unmistakably human. A salvage fleet, heavily armed and clearly intent on claiming the archive and Now-RA. "They're not here by accident," Darius muttered, his jaw tightening. "They've been looking for you." The first shots came before he could finish. Plasma burst streaking toward the archive. Now-RA's shields flared to life, absorbing the impact. But Darius knew they couldn't hold for long. He gripped the controls, adrenaline surging as he prepared for the inevitable fight. "Darius," Now-RA said, its voice cutting through the chaos. "If they take me, they'll use me for the very purpose my pilot tried to prevent. You know what must be done." "No!" Darius snapped, his hands flying across the console. "We're not doing this. I didn't come this far to watch you destroy yourself. There is no other way," the ship replied. "If they breach my systems, they will unlock the weapon. The galaxy cannot survive that." Darius gritted his teeth, his mind racing. The enemy ships were closing in, their weapon systems targeting Now-RA's weak points. He could feel the ship's desperation. It struggled to protect itself while grappling with the inevitability of its fate. "I won't let you die," Darius said, his voice fierce. "Not like this." "You don't understand," Now-RA whispered. "This is my purpose. My pilot left me here so that I could choose, and I choose to protect what he died for." A memory surged into Darius's mind, his own past, the moment he had abandoned his squad to save a group of civilians trapped in the crossfire. The weight of that decision, the lives it had cost, still haunted him. But this wasn't the same. This time, there had to be another way. The archive flared with light, its systems destabilizing under the assault. Darius's eyes scanned the controls, searching for a solution. Then he saw it. A way to overload the archive's power core, creating an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disable the enemy fleet without destroying Now-RA. "It's risky," he muttered, "but it might work." "What are you doing?" Now-RA asked, its voice sharp with alarm. "Trust me," Darius said, his fingers flying over the console. "You wanted a pilot. Now you've got one." The ship hesitated. Then its lights pulsed in assent. "I trust you." The plan unfolded in seconds. Darius diverted all available power to the archive's core, setting a timed detonation sequence. As the enemy ships closed in, he pushed Now-RA to its limits, maneuvering with precision that bordered on reckless. Plasma fire streaked past, but he didn't flinch, his focus razor-sharp. The countdown reached 0, and the archive erupted in a blinding flash of energy. The pulse rippled outward, disabling the enemy ships in an instant. For a moment, the silence was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of Now-RA's systems. "You did it," Now-RA said, its voice filled with something akin to awe. "We did it," Darius corrected, slumping back in his seat. His body ached. His mind was exhausted. But relief flooded through him. They had survived. As the archive's remains drifted into the void, Darius knew their journey was far from over. The answers they had found raised more questions, and the galaxy was still a dangerous place for a sentient warship and its unlikely pilot. But for the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose, a reason to keep going. Where now? Naoari asked, its voice quieter now, almost hesitant. Wherever we're needed, Darius replied, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The stars stretched before them, endless and full of possibility. Together, they would face whatever came next.